So Lisa, she's in there. It's every boy's dream. And I try to think, would I be in there with my buddy in high school? Would I be able to do that? Would you have been in there in your jeans?
I probably would have gone full Nelson. I probably would have been naked right away.
I think I probably wouldn't have.
Really?
But I probably would have watched.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass. We're gonna die, 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 die hard. We're gonna die, 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 die as hard as we can.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we do the rewinding of your VHS tapes and go back and look at those 80s and 90s movies that you may have remembered in a different light. My name is Richard Roper, along with my co-host Dick Ebert, are doing the dirty work for you. I think that we had a great first episode. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a good start. I think we've had some good feedback, and I think it's starting to spark an interest in a lot of people, and I think it'll be something fun to do.
Dick, we got our first review for Big. I thought that was pretty cool.
Very nice. It's nice to see people listening and enjoying us.
Yeah, I'll read it off. This comes from Wooby Flux. Again, fantastic name. He goes, or she, he or she, we're not sure. A Wooby Flux, I think, could go either way. They go on to say, crap, horrible, and tedious would be the words I would not use to describe this podcast. It's better described as fun, engaging, and overall entertaining. Funny hosts and great start. Instant subscription, highly recommended. If you like what you're hearing, the way that we get more listeners and we keep doing this is through iTunes reviews and subscriptions. So thanks to Wooby Flux.
But I do have a public service addition to that. I was contacted by email of one of our listeners who had written a review, and he wanted to know why it hadn't posted. So even though my friends call me Dick, I think that iTunes is flagging our listeners' constant use of the word Dick in their review. So this, one of our listeners had a problem with me referencing gingers constantly throughout it. So he said Dick's referencing of ginger. So I think iTunes has flagged it and hasn't posted it. So going forward, if you could just use my God-given name, Richard Ebert.
Or just say the Big D.
The Big D. Oh, that'll probably get flagged too, but the Big D might work.
So one of the things, Dick, that you and I talked about last week that got a lot of positive response was your Blockbuster story. So for those listening who are just tuning in for the first time, Dick actually worked for quite some time at his local Blockbuster store. For those who are too young to remember what Blockbuster was a brick and mortar place where you could go on Fridays or Saturdays, or basically it was open 7 days a week. You could go there and you could rent movies on VHS tape or DVDs. It was like the first major retailer of video rentals. This was before Netflix. This was before Amazon. And it was like a thing. It was like going to the movies, but like going to thing. And a lot of times it was like roulette, where you would go and you just wouldn't know. There was no such thing as having anything you wanted. You would go to Blockbuster and you may not come out with the movie you intended to go see. But the people who worked at these video rental stores always had the best stories. And Dick, I know that you've shared a couple of these with me, but I figured I might be a good thing for a running segment where you give us a story that you had from Blockbuster.
So I worked in one of these stores in New York. It was one of the top grossing stores at the time. So every Friday night was packed. And when we would get new releases, like say, for example, Speed. When Speed came out, you would get 200-300 copies of the movie. And I don't know why at the time I thought this was a good idea. I was in high school at the time, so I now feel kind of bad about it. But we thought it would be kind of funny. We talked last week about getting adult films mixed into the boxes by accident. So that got me and another employee thinking, what would happen if we spliced in an adult scene into a normal, new release? So this was all before Fight Club came out with all the subliminal frames. So we took two VCRs, and we dubbed in right in speed as the bus is, coming to the overpass, and it has to jump the gap. So we spliced in a scene of Ron Jeremy climaxing, let's just say, about a 5 or 6 second scene. And it ends right as the bus lands and everybody on the bus claps. Woo! Keanu saved them. So we swapped it in the boxes, put it back out on the shelf, and just waited. And it took 4 rentals before the first person complained.
Do you think there's people who are like, well, I mean, that seems totally normal. I mean, it's a little odd that the director made that choice, but
no, I can think of 3 possible scenarios, and they're all really, really bad now, especially now because I have a kid. So I'm imagining, scenario 1, because this was a new release. This was, people were in line waiting for the Dropbox to find it as a returned video. So I'm envisioning option 1, a family gathering Friday night. They're watching the movie. Scene comes on. Mom and dad just look at each other and just let it go. Kids are kind of confused. You just, woo, yeah, that Keanu. Yeah, he's saving them. He's saving them. Kids don't know any the wiser. It just goes on. Or possibly it just somebody thought it was possibly part of the movie. Maybe they weren't paying attention. They caught out of the corner of their eye. Maybe it's a director's cut. They don't know. And today they're telling their friends, man, what was up with that scene in Speed? What was Ron Jeremy doing there? What the hell did that have to do with it?
Oh my God, that's fantastic. I can't wait to hear more stories from the store. But the movie that we're focusing on today is the 1985 classic Weird Science. For those who don't know the movie or have never seen the movie, basically the plot is these 2 high school age nerd losers decide to create or design the ideal woman or create a woman using their computers. It brings her to life, and she makes these guys, popular. I remember this movie as, something that I would watch all the time when I was young. Like I was kind of a nerd growing up. I was kind of into computers. I was kind of a geek myself. I wasn't the smoothest guy with the girls, and I totally identified with this movie. It, kind of a fun teen comedy, if you will.
Well, the way we're choosing movies going forward is we post on our website the 4 that we think would get the most broad appeal, and we let the listeners vote on it. So you can vote on the website, shatthemovies.com, or on our Twitter account, and each week we'll be tallying up the votes. And Friday night we will go with whatever you choose, and we'll watch it. So this week, Weird Science was by far, it went up against Predator, which I thought would win hands down, Gremlins, and the Patrick Swayze epic Roadhouse. But by far, the listeners wanted Weird Science. So I remember watching it, and everyone I talked to says, oh my God, it was great. It was fantastic. I love it. And that was the memory I had as well. So it was kind of tough to sit through this one, I'll be honest.
It's not a bad idea.
What?
Making a girl. Actually making a girl.
This is Wyatt and Gary.
I'd give her Wamdigious mammary glands.
Something's about to change their world. Something out of this world.
She's alive! Alive!
What would you little maniacs like to do first?
It's all in the name of science. Weird science.
If you want to be a party animal, you have to learn to live in the jungle.
Not us.
Not here. No way.
She is turning their lives.
Trust me for once, will you?
What is going on?
Gary, I don't know.
Their minds. And their house. Upside down.
It's seriously affecting your sex life.
It's completely unnatural.
Do you realize it's snowing in my room?
Totally unbelievable.
What's going on?
And definitely weird.
Hey, dudes.
They went from zeros to heroes in one fantastic weekend.
That's so good.
Universal Pictures presents a John Hughes film, Weird Science.
It's purely sexual.
Well, I want to start off by apologizing to Tom Hanks and Penny Marshall, who I really tore apart kind of last week. Compared to this, Big was fantastic. I'm adding Big back into my library. This has given me some context, and I going forward, I will have a different view of some of these movies.
I will slap the next person who claims that John Hughes is a directorial genius, because so John Hughes wrote and directed this movie, and it couldn't have been further apart from a John Hughes movie, in my opinion. Just you think of the classic John Hughes movies, right? The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, to a lesser degree, Home Alone. This was atrocious.
Well, the problem was he wrote the movie, I found out, in 2 days. And he also had filmed 4 movies within that 12-month period and released 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, and then Weird Science 6 months later. So he was busy, and I don't think quality control was his biggest concern or continuity. But, that being said, I had problems with the movie. But still, in my memory, the scenes that I loved as a kid, I think still held up. But overall, the movie, we're going to get into it, there was some troubles.
Yeah. This movie was written in 2 days, what appears to be on the back of a cocktail napkin. It's the Laffer curve of John Hughes movies. That's Weird Science. But let's dive into it. So the movie opens up on Wyatt and Gary. Gary played by the incredulous Anthony Michael Hall, and Wyatt by Ian Michael Smith.
But what I loved is the first shot. Besides them being creepy and whispering to each other and talking about their fantasies in a way that I just didn't want to hear, straight center on in the back is the future homemakers poster for the school. Is that still a thing?
No, but apparently what was a thing also in the 80s as well was high school gymnastics. These are things that, looking back, I'm like, yeah, where is the future homemakers club, and where is the female gymnastics team doing Olympic style gymnastics just during third period?
Oh, and they were nailing it. It wasn't even like they were out there just trying. They were doing the uneven bars, they were doing the vault, and they were killing it. They were doing a great job. That's not how my gym class was. That's not how. Is that what was yours like?
My gym class was basically you got an A if you just dressed out every day. You didn't have to do any physical activity whatsoever. Apparently, in 1985, if you couldn't do a triple Lutz back handspring, you were failing.
That's what it looked like. And, right about then is when I got the shock. I did not remember that Robert Downey Jr. Was one of the bullies that he played Max. I had no idea. So when he came on screen, I was surprised. I was like, wow, that's great. Okay, we got a good Robert Downey Jr. Role here.
Can we talk about Robert Downey Jr.'s role in this movie? So like you said, he is the main bully in this flick. But it seemed like they were out of like a Scooby-Doo cartoon. Did it seem that way for you? Like the amount of like bad ADR that happened in this movie, there was at least one point in the movie, I think it was like the party scene where the jumping ahead, the biker mutants come crashing into the party, and he and his friend, his sidekick bully, go like they do like zoinks and like
This party's great, Max. What about the girls?
It's like very bad cartoon. I couldn't understand what John Hughes was going for. Was he?
Well, I think these two guys would be very successful in high school. That's why I think they were spot on. I bought that the girls liked them. I bought that they didn't care. I bought that they were popular. To me, they were pretty good. They were spot on.
Did you enjoy the fact that everyone in this movie seemed to be wearing vests?
Oh my God, the outfits were terrible. But as a former veteran of the United States Army, stolen valor is always a big thing for me. So I'm shocked that when I'm sitting in there and you see Robert Downey Jr. in the mall, what is he wearing but an EOD badge, explosive ordnance badge on his jean vest. And I had to stop and look. I said, was that a thing to do in the 80s? I guess we weren't any big wars back then, and it was okay to do. But I was just like, what is he doing?
But so so Wyatt and Gary have the weekend alone. They get pants, by the way. Pantsing was a very big thing. Was pantsing ever a big thing in high school for you? Did you ever get pantsed?
No, I don't care. Even Wyatt and Gary should have turned around and punched him. You can't do that. And I don't buy that their tighty whities would have stayed up. I think would have been a show for the girls, and the police would have been coming in.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you think that their underwear stayed on? I got the impression that their underwear was completely off, and the gymnastics team stopped what they were doing and just, completely laughed at them. You got to think, I mean, from what I know of nerds, you got to be packing. At least one of them is packing, right?
Both. But I like that they just stood there and owned it.
Yeah.
Wyatt, who's the ultimate pussy, wanted to run away, but Gary just kind of held him there and said, no, let's just stay here. Let's just own this.
Yeah.
And for that, thumbs up, Gary. I like it. Wyatt, thumbs down.
So they go back to Wyatt's house. They're in Wyatt's room, which, again, they are in like the nicest white suburb in Chicago. All these rich white kids complaining about their lives, that their parents are leaving them alone in this like fantastic Chicago suburb.
And Wyatt tells Gary, don't make a mess. The maid doesn't come back until Monday. How is he a sympathetic, likable character?
I definitely did not identify with these characters. I hated these characters from the get-go. I thought that there was more to the plot of this movie, but the fact that it took 2 days on the back of a cocktail napkin makes a lot of sense, where they just dive right in. Gary's like, I guess he's horny. They're not invited to any parties. He's like, well, what if we just made a girl? What if we just invented a girl? Wyatt is, I guess, the voice of the audience, where he's like, how would we make a girl?
Well, I do. I actually like the fact that they don't even try to pretend like they're going to do it for real. They're just clipping out. They're just doing like making one of those wish boards. They're doing like a collage. They're feeding pictures. They don't even pretend. They hack into some anonymous government website. We don't know what it is. It looks like Doom, the video game. We don't care what they're doing. We just buy it. We'll go with it. I don't know why he had a Barbie doll laying around. I don't know where those bras came from. They didn't look like, they should be his mother's. But to me, I think it wouldn't work today, because they'd be on Pornhub, or they'd be on one of the porn sites together.
Yeah, but this is what you had to do back in the 80s. You actually had to like create a wish board if you wanted to, get off. It was so funny.
Gary wants to ask her dirty questions. So he wants phone sex. That's what Gary is aiming at. He wants to talk dirty to her, and he says she's going to like it. Gary wants to make her an idiot. Wyatt's like, I'll give her some intelligence, almost as like a throw-in. So they're not even pretending like they care about what she has to say.
Because, again, they are using 1980s technology, and I love how they try to depict 1980s technology by using Tron-like graphics with the Crypto Smasher version 3.1, and the visualizations that fly after, like, they know that they've hacked in. They're like, ooh, we shouldn't be here. When you see
skull
like
and crossbones, skull and crossbones,
right.
Skull and crossbones.
That's right. It literally says on the screen, 5th grade, slow learner, boring dipshit. That was the description of how big her brain was before they hacked into what appeared to be like a military base. Like, what was that? What was that? He was like reading a magazine before the tapes in the back start going.
Maybe there was some kind of government research into sending like sex bots. Maybe there was some government program that he was aware of that was making like living sex dolls. I don't know. I can't imagine why hacking into NORAD, like in war games, would help them power up their little sex doll. But.
Right. Not only that, but then as the thing is going on, they're like, oh my God, we're using too much. Things starts going on. Like a major storm starts happening. Clouds start, forming, and lightning is striking. Dogs are on ceilings. Like what is happening? I don't really truly understand what they're trying to get at.
But I like that they don't even care. They don't even try. They just go for it. And for that, I'm okay. That's not my problem. Really? Yes, I just bought it. They made it so ridiculous. It was good. I went with it.
Again, I like if I'm going to create a woman out of my computer, Dick, I want it to be as realistic as possible. The one thing I did like was the fact that they had set a ceremonial candles around the Barbie doll that they were going to inject life into. Again, there was no blueprints for how they were going to do this, but I guess it made sense. And then they have on the bras. Whose bras do you think they're wearing?
It has to be the mother's, which makes it even worse that they went into mom's panty drawer and put them on. But, Gary says it's for ceremony. That's why you got to do it. There's no scientific reason. It's all for ceremony. I bought it. I liked it. I had no problem. I had a Commodore 64 when I was in grade school. I wish I could have done this.
Worlds explode, and probably the most famous scene of Weird Science, Lisa emerges. The model, the actress, Kelly Lebrock. Now, I completely forgot Kelly Lebrock was married to Steven Seagal.
I did as well, and that did take a little bit off of her performance in this, but let's just be thankful at this point she was Seagal free. So yes. she was not tainted, so it didn't bother me. And forget about being epic in Weird Science. This was epic in like every teenage boy's memory and their dreams. That was the perfect girl for every teenage boy to just pop right out into their bedroom. And what can these guys do to come up? What's the first thing they want to do? Is take a shower with her.
That's right.
So Lisa, she's in there. It's every boy's dream. And I try to think, would I be in there with my buddy in high school? Would I be able to do that? Would you have been in there in your jeans?
I probably would have gone full Nelson. I probably would have been naked right away.
I think I probably wouldn't have.
Really?
I probably would have watched.
Can we talk about Lisa's, what is she? So I don't really fully understand all of her powers.
You're not supposed to. She's supposed to have every power you could ever imagine. She can solve every problem. She can do anything. And again, I bought it. What's your problem with it?
I don't understand, because I started writing down the different powers. Is she like Shaquille O'Neal in the movie Shazam? She has mind control.
She is a genie. She's a genie.
So why don't they say, well, we created a genie? Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no wishes. There's no anything. She just does whatever she can. There's no, I don't get it. I don't understand. It didn't make sense to me. The fact that she can had the same power to turn on a car or turn on a lamp, but then also create a Porsche 928 and a Ferrari Testarossa, or freeze people, or create hordes of killer mutant motorcycle gangs, or just turn people into literal piles of shit. I did not fully understand what her powers were. It seemed like she could just do anything.
Yeah, that's what I liked. More powers are better than less powers. I liked it. So they hop in her caddy, which she creates, which you probably have a problem with, but who cares? And she says, we're going to go out, we're going to hang out. And where does she take them? But she takes them to the candy bar.
Now, the candy bar was, what was the candy bar? Was it like a primarily African-American blues bar? Is that what it was? Like, why did they go to the candy bar?
I think she was going to try to force them out of their comfort zone. And now looking at this, I want to hang out at the candy bar. I want to get my friend Cullen. I want to go in there, have a couple drinks, sit down. I want to listen to the blues. I want to talk. I love everything about the candy shop except for the bathrooms and the urinals. I was just confused at the all black bar, but yet there's like a white lumberjack in the middle urinal in the bathroom that all three urinals are taken up. The two dudes turn around to look at Wyatt. You don't go in. If you're rolling 3 deep in urinals, you just step out. You just take your time.
So Wyatt's in the bathroom, right? He starts backing away and he goes into a stall, and the camera pans down and it shows that there's, I guess, another guy in the bathroom with him. And
he's sitting on his lap, and Wyatt says,
well, goddamn.
Did he just sit on another guy's unit? What just happened?
He must have. And you didn't hear the guy complaining. So this is all about expanding Wyatt and Gary's horizon. So this is all Lisa's plan. So if it's a bar, yeah,
he literally expanded Wyatt's back horizon, is what you're saying.
It is fantastic. Again, I'm all for it.
Well, goddamn.
All right, I did not appreciate the overt racism. Like, all of a sudden, white nerd Gary gets drunk and starts like throwing on a pretty racist, overt black accent, like he's a 1970s pimp, that really made me upset.
And what did it to me was these big titties she had. For a 13-year-old girl, man, she wouldn't have had to worry about no titties for the rest of her life, boy. You know, she was set and she was looking good, son.
That's the truth, baby.
It made me super uncomfortable.
I thought it was okay. It was one of those scenes you remember, but I just found myself just wanting to punch Anthony Michael Hall in the face because he just goes on too long. The bitch kneed me in the balls. No, you didn't knee him in the balls. The bitch. And I liked it. But here's a question for the listeners, if you could tell me. They pan over to the one Spanish guy who's at the table, and he's asking, Lisa, what are you with these two guys for? And he said, she said, I like them. And he goes, oh, you like the malacas? My wife is Brazilian. She speaks multiple languages. She did not know what malaca is. So if anyone knows what malaca is.
So that's day one. So the first day, they drive back to Wyatt's house. Gary is wasted. He goes immediately to bed. Wyatt and Lisa are out there on the veranda, on the porch, and I thought that they were about to do it. I thought they literally were gonna bang, but I guess
I thought this was big all over again. My wife looked at me. She said, "Oh my God, they're not going to. They're not going to. Are they?" And when they woke up the next morning, I was thankful that they hadn't, obviously. But that scene of Wyatt in her panties haunts my dreams. It to this day,
This is where we're introduced into the character Chet. Chet is Wyatt's older brother, played by Bill Paxton. And I remember, this is the epitome of every bad, older brother character in the 80s. But for some reason, Bill Paxton was my favorite character. I really enjoyed his performance.
Well, what surprised me, and I think that was the biggest looking back on it, I felt like Chet was a big part of the movie. When he came on, I remembered him. You remember all his lines, but he's in the movie for all of maybe 4 minutes.
Right.
Did you remember it that way, or was that?
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess is a credit to Bill Paxton and the fact that every scene that he's in, he's chewing up, scenery, which is fantastic because he just sells it as the creepy older brother.
He is an absolute tool. But you had mentioned before that you were an only child. Is this what you thought big brothers would do? I never had a big brother either.
This is exactly what I thought big brothers would do. I thought that they would pretend throw up on you. I think they would shake you down for $175 and have terrible flat top haircuts. Because shortly after this, or a few years later, rather, we were introduced to Buzz in Home Alone, another John Hughes classic, where the older brother is essentially the same character. So the biggest problem that I had with this movie in rewatching it is the fact that, again, it feels rushed. They create Lisa, they go to the candy bar, then they go to the mall, then they have a party, then movie over. There was really nothing that explained or got into the depth of the character other than just wearing a lot of terrible 80s wardrobe with a lot of teenage tropes.
Well, I felt like they had an outline. There was really no script. So the outline said, we need to demonstrate that everyone knows they're losers. So the two of them go in to buy perfume, and the clerk just mocks them. Oh, you two have girlfriends, just mocks them. So we have to see that Wyatt and Gary are widely known as nerds. She even says, aren't you the two who got your ass kicked at homecoming? So we need to see them put down all the way to the bottom. But this mall reminded me completely of my youth.
Did you ever get into fights at malls? Did anyone try to bully you at a mall?
No, I was the dick, unfortunately.
You would do things.
Perfect. So we would buy, besides being just prolific shoplifters, which is terrible. We used to go to KB Toys, would have those little yellow plastic BBs for those BB guns.
Right.
And they fit perfectly within a McDonald's straw. So what you would do is you'd put about 15, 20 of them in your mouth and just shoot them out of the straw, and they would come out at high velocity. So you would stand in the overpass kind of looking down, and you would just strafe groups of people and see them grabbing their necks like they're being attacked by bees. Now I feel terrible. I wouldn't do it, and I'd be mad if somebody did to me, but at the time it was kind of funny.
Again, one of the other bigger problems that I had with them at the mall is that it seemed like the entire town hated them. Like they lived in like the shittiest suburb because as Robert Downey Jr. and his sidekick are above Wyatt and Gary, and they're sharing a moment about how things are starting to look up because they just had a technological breakthrough where they created a woman out of their Commodore 64. They get ices poured on their head. And the entire mall stops and starts laughing at them. Don't you like in today's world, if that were to happen, there would be a lawsuit, like the entire mall would shut down.
I think now watching all these movies, it's shocking when you see that there's no cell phones, because cell phones change everything. If he's in the mall, they videotape it. That's viral, 100%. And then, Gary's parents probably sue the mall for not having enough security. And then he has to go to therapists. So, yes, cell phones change everything. I like the way it went down. I'm okay with Gary and Wyatt. They needed to get a little kick in the ass to get them to start using Lisa.
Did you also notice the amount of terrible cut scenes with very blatantly obvious stunt drivers? Like anytime that someone was driving the Porsche or the Ferrari or the cop car, you could just totally tell that they were stunt drivers. They made no allusions into trying to cover that up.
You would see Gary pull up and he'd be grinding the gears and he'd hit the curb, but then he pulls away and he actually drifts and turns the corner and hits it perfect.
Those scenes, I noticed it right away. It's like it shows like Anthony Michael Hall and then a 45-year-old in a terrible Anthony Michael Hall wig that
with a mustache
that he picked up from Spencer's.
Yes, that I did pick up on. But what I love here is that Lisa tells Max and Ian, hey, there's going to be a party tonight at the house. There's no Facebook. There's no internet. How the hell is word spreading that fast?
Yeah.
But somehow
she opens the door. There's like the entire town is there and they're quiet. They're like waiting to come in.
I loved it. As we're doing this podcast, I'm liking the movie more and more.
No, it's a trick. It's a trap.
No.
This movie was terrible.
No, she stands there and says, hello. And they all go, hi. And they all walk in. Come on, that's awesome.
Hi.
No,
awesome.
How about when she goes to pick up Gary from Gary's house?
Oh, epic. And again, like I said in the beginning, the movie overall has problems, but the one little pieces that you remember, the set pieces, were fantastic. Lisa going to Gary's house to pick him up and his parents asking, what are you doing? And she pulls out the old famous, it's going to be a soiree with chips, dips, chains, whips. And then she threatens to kick Al's ass because he's out of shape. It was awesome. Everything I remembered.
She's like, it's your basic high school orgy. I don't understand the fact that she can pull out a gun, but then mind control him. Why doesn't she just mind control him like from the get-go? Why does she try to convince the parents it didn't make any sense to me.
She was trying to teach Gary to stand up to his parents. But in the movies we've watched so far, every parent has been absent or just awful. It seems like Gary is our first character with decent parents. They don't want him going out to school night with a woman who looks like she's 35. And they're having problems with it. Yeah. So I'm happy. Do you have a problem with his parents actually wanting to make sure he's safe?
I have a problem with Gary's dad. It looked at one point, I expected Gary's dad to backslap his wife. He was a terrible individual. I hated him. I hated his haircut. The fact that it was like matted down into like his face. He was drinking like a non-name brand beer. And he was just ordering Gary around and ordering around his wife. I did not care for that character whatsoever.
He's a plumber, an independent contractor. I bought it. I liked it. He reminds me of every plumber I have ever known.
So they're back at the party. things are going well. Gary and Wyatt are locked in the bathroom because they still can't come out. The party itself, can we dive into the party that's created? Did Lisa create all that food, or did she go out shopping? Because there's no part of the movie. Again, this is the problem that I had with her powers. Did she create all that food? Did she like call in catering? Did she have the people from the candy bar bring it? Because they're working the bar, which again, I had a problem with. Why the black man, from the candy bar, why can't he just be invited to the party? Why does he have to work the party? Why is he not even credited? It just says bartender at the end scene. Why not give the character a name?
So she by far makes the most inappropriate spread for a party. You don't want something that people have to get a plate. It's not Thanksgiving dinner. We don't want cranberries. We don't want corn. We don't want mashed potatoes. These are all things that will destroy the house. And you don't want to eat that right before you're drinking at a high school party. It's a complete mistake.
It made no sense to me why Thanksgiving dinner would be served. But okay, fine.
Every woman in this movie just looks at Lisa and just feels shitty about themselves. Oh my God, look at her. She's perfect. Look at her body. I'm so terrible. They're all just self-loathing. It's just the whole movie portrays, if women don't look gorgeous like Kelly Lebrock, you're just shit. The two girlfriends who are in a relationship are convinced their boyfriends are going to leave them because they don't look like this woman at the party.
Where is Chet during the house party?
Oh, he's out hunting. Because the next day he comes back with his shotgun and he's got looks like a duck. I'm imagining he's out in a tree stand somewhere in the woods.
How is that not explained? How is it not explained that Chet was not going to be there? It doesn't make any sense. But because you could have used Chet's character, but instead they pull in Wyatt's grandparents, which I guess came straight out of Masterpiece Theater. Made no sense whatsoever. They're at dinner. And they have English accents. You know what? Let's go by and see our grandson Wyatt.
Doesn't he have something to read? Do all grandparents think the kids are sitting home reading? That's garbage. But I love as they're walking through the house and we see it, the house is slowly getting destroyed magically and also just by people. When they walk up the stairs to go to the bathroom, you can see that there's little like Hitler mustaches on the entire family on all of their portraits on the wall going up. Did you ever destroy anyone's house at a party, or did you ever have a house destroyed?
I never had a house destroyed. Here's the thing that I did have that was destroyed. I was a big fan of Cracked and Mad Magazine growing up. And that was like my escape. I would love reading those magazines. And so I took one of my Cracked or Mad Magazine, I can't remember which one it was, to elementary school. And this was one of those elementary schools where you had a home room. And at home room, you put your backpack in your little cubbyhole locker, and then you switch periods. Well, someone during when I was at another period somehow got into my backpack, pulled out my Mad Magazine, and literally drew dicks all throughout the Mad Magazine. Any, I guess, self-aware child at the time probably would have said, welp, this is ruined, and throw it away. But no, I took it home and was reading it, left it in the bathroom. My parents picked it up and literally had an intervention with me. They sat down with me and they were like, we need to talk about something. I'm like, well, I started thinking to myself, well, what have I done? I've done all my chores. I didn't get in trouble at school. What possibly could they talk about? Not thinking that they're going to, pick up my Mad Magazine and see that there's a copious amount of phallic objects on every male and female character throughout this entire magazine. And they were like, and lo and behold, that's what it was. And it took a little bit of convincing, about 15, 20 minutes of them being, for me to say, no, I'm not crazy. I don't draw dicks. This isn't a problem. I don't do this. So you can imagine my surprise when I first saw Superbad. And that's an entire plot point. That character must have gone to my elementary school and somehow got to Seth Rogen. I don't know, but literally that happened. So that's the only drawing objects on other objects story that I have. But the other thing that shook me about the party in concern to the grandparents are the fact that the grandfather is literally accosting and molesting people as he's walking through the crowd. Did you pick up on that at all?
Old people can do whatever they want. At some age, you just walk when you want. You say what you want. People just tolerate it. It's accepted. I don't get it. So that I bought it. I got no problem with that. I for that reason, I'm not ashamed to say I don't like old people. I think they try to pull the I'm old, I can get away with it. I don't like it. It bothers me. So I think they get what they deserve.
So Lisa literally freezes them. Again, her powers, unbeknownst to anyone exactly what they are, does that. And then she says, well, I've got to switch things up because Wyatt and Gary aren't coming out of the bathroom. So her big idea, her big plan is to create this motorcycle gang. Now, was this motorcycle gang, did it exist before, or was it just kind of fabricated out of air?
I think she just fabricated it, but again, no cell phones. That shit would have been terrifying. Are you imagine that? Somebody pulls into a house party. Forget the guy with the metal face. Somebody pulls their bike, starts driving through a house. I think everybody's running. Somebody pulls a gun. That shit happens today. It's going down very different.
Yeah, I hated the motorcycle gang. I found it cheesy. They're straight out of Mad Max. They're coming in. The worst line in the movie is where one of the motorcycle gang, which I think he has one side of his face, he's the Terminator, and the other side of the face, he's not. And he goes to like one of the kids, and the kids goes, "This bud's for you, man," and hangs him, and the motorcycle guy like bangs it over his head. I thought that was super cheesy. And again,
it was terrible. I think you could have done away with half them, but the actual leader of the bike gang I liked. He was in Mad Max. He was in.
Is that the one with the feather on his head?
Yes, with the girl on the leash.
Okay, yeah.
So he had done Mad Max. So this was his first movie in the U.S.
Not only did it take 2 days to write, but it also it seemed as if they only had 2 days to film, because it seemed as if they didn't take other takes. Like the amount of terrible physical comedy that's happening, people like running into walls and sloppily, falling over. I hated it so much.
It's obvious that Lisa is controlling this biker gang. So what does Lisa do? She doesn't just try to get them to kind of toughen up. She reveals all of their deepest, darkest secrets. She reveals the fact that Gary beats off into magazines, that even though his mother didn't know, she thought that he tosses off into his hand. No, she says he tosses off into magazines. They couldn't even take a shower with a girl. She rips them down. She just belittles them.
And I didn't buy that right after the motorcycle gang leaves, that all of a sudden the bully's girlfriends now want to get with Wyatt and Gary. To the point to where Wyatt drives his girl home and then says, "I love you" at the end. They literally hung out for like a night.
Well, here's my question. How long does it take now that, once Lisa leaves, for these two to revert back to their exact life? You don't walk up to a girl you just kissed for the first time and say, "I love you." That shit's going to get old.
And then do a jump through the sprinklers.
I was waiting for it to be the end of The Breakfast Club, where he just jumps up in the sprinkler and they freeze it, mid fist pump.
Two scenes I really like out of the movie. The first being, I'm a teacher. Can we keep this between us?
Can we keep this between us? I'd hate to lose my teaching job.
And the other was when they get home and Lisa has turned Shat into a literal pile of shit. And Shat goes, "Hey, dudes."
Shat.
Hi, dudes.
Now, I will say this. I remember watching that when I was younger and being ridiculously high. My roommate and I went back and rewound that and watched it no less than 15 times.
Hi, dudes.
That's like my favorite scene in the movie is the "Hey dudes" pile of shit.
Hi, dudes.
Well, that's one of the scenes you remember. When he finally agrees, I'm going to be nice to them. I'll let them go. And then he has that unconscious, like the tongue shoots out and gets a fly. And he goes, "Oh, my, oh."
Oh, my God.
I liked it. Again, I'm liking this movie more and more as we go on.
Don't fall into the trap.
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So it's wrapped up with a nice bow. They're cool. They have girlfriends. They now know how to drive. Wyatt's brother's going to be nice to them. The house is fixed. The parents come home. It's all great.
By magic.
She disappears in kind of this, puff of smoke.
No, she says, I'm off to like my neck. I just have to leave.
Right. But here's my problem. What the hell happened to the grandparents? Are they still in the closet?
It's never fully explained. What happened?
I think they're there.
They're just there.
Do you think they're having a good time being catatonic in a closet?
They're just there. And like Lisa said, they're not sleeping. It's even better because they're not aging. It's great. Let's tease Wyatt that his grandparents are going to die at any time. Their mortality is, quite funny.
But she leaves to be a PE teacher at their high school. It made no sense. I hated this. I hated this movie.
Okay, so the end, yes, it was bad. The fact that Lisa now becomes the PE coach at the school where this party went down, bikers came out, people were shot, that she would get a job there. Maybe in the 80s that happens. But again, I'm liking it. I'm completely turned around.
It was a worse ending than the movie Big when he just runs home and leaves the Zoltar machine out there for people to find and destroy the Middle East. I hated it. I found them. And again, I thought that there was more of a closure to this movie. I thought there was more of a plot. There was not. It literally takes over a 2-day span where nothing really bad happens. Even the stuff that happens bad is just magically repaired through a magical fireplace. I hated this. I couldn't stand it.
Well, do you ever find kind of the that it's okay and it's actually accepted to joke about an adult teacher having sex with children?
It used to be.
It's okay. It's in comedy. It's gold. Let's flip the roles. Let's have that be a 35-year-old guy, again, coming out and doing his gym class and doing squats in a tiny set of shorts and a cutoff tank top in front of like a whole group of girls. And then they all just hit themselves in the head and fall over. I don't like the double standard.
People are wondering why all of a sudden there's a fascination with having sex with teachers as 15-year-old boys, because that's what the 80s taught us. It was perfectly acceptable. It was every guy's dream. And if you didn't, you weren't cool.
I agree. So in the end here, what's your take on the movie?
I would not recommend.
How's it hold up?
I did not think that the movie held up. And I think the problem was that I was completely sober at the time. There's key moments of this movie that I would like, but overall, you're better off just remembering this movie in its fondness and its glory, but not actually going back and watching it.
I think it is well worth it. And I can't believe I'm actually saying this now, because I when I finished the movie, I was like, oh my, what was that? But the movie on a whole, if you remember all the pieces you loved, that is still there and that is still funny and worth watching. So I would recommend watching it again, but fast forward through most of the dialogue and most of the background story and just get right to Gary's parents. It's gold. Who's this Gary character? That whole scene is gold. The candy bar is gold. Chet is gold. Don't try to stick it all together. This movie, it's garbage, and you can see that it took no time to put together, but it is well worth a watch. So I would give it, yes, it's worth watching, and I would definitely watch it again.
All right, some interesting facts that came in during our research of this movie. The actor who played Wyatt, Ian Mitchell Smith, gave up the pursuit of an acting career and is now a college professor of like medieval literature and medieval like history, which I found fascinating.
What blew me away was that 3 months after this movie came out, Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. started on SNL.
Yeah. And Anthony Michael Hall was 17 at the time, which made him one of the youngest SNL characters, and also arguably one of the worst SNL casts ever.
Well, I think they fired them all in one shot.
Yeah.
But another strange, like after talking about Big last week with the alternate ending scene, did you also hear about the ending of this that was clipped?
No.
So we never see what happens to Max and Ian when they escape the party. They just run off. So there was an alternate scene which was shot, which still is around, and I'm going to find it so we can link it in the show notes, to where Ian and Max are turned into, I think it's like a pig and a dog. And they're in their clothes, but they're now been turned into animals, and you see the tail shoot through their pants, and both of them are kind of shocked at what's happened to them. And that even though everything's gone back to normal, they have stayed now as animals. So it was a twisted ending.
That's great. I actually probably would have liked that. One of the other things, did you know that when it was shipped overseas for overseas audiences, its name, Weird Science, didn't quite translate. So some of the names were different. When it was released in Denmark, the title was renamed to Touch Me, I'm Yours, which tells you everything you need to know about Denmark.
I just have one, parting note here. Please, anyone who remembers this movie fondly and remembers Kelly Lebrock, do not Google Kelly Lebrock photos. You do not want to see her today. It will ruin your memory. Let's just stick with the movie, pop in the VHS or watch it online, but do not look at her now because it will just ruin every good memory you have as a kid.
It looks like Steven Seagal in drag. I mean, and I don't mean to be mean, and I don't mean to like body shame her, but she looks like she went overboard in the early rounds of plastic surgery in Hollywood and just went too far.
Agreed. I think she was beautiful and she would have aged gracefully, but instead she went under the knife. So she looks, it looks like a little bit of Meg Griffin. So
I'm sure she's a lovely lady. We love Kelly Lebrock, but 1980s and early 90s plastic surgery, a little scary.
So one of the things that I thought was cool, you could tell the budget really wasn't there for special effects, but without a doubt, Harry Potter stole the idea of the actual moving paintings and picture frames from this movie.
Yes.
When they pan over Wyatt's family and you see the mother and father dancing in the picture frame, I immediately thought of Harry Potter. Did you?
Yep. I definitely thought of that. And I also thought, how is this happening? This doesn't make sense. They're using a computer to create a woman. Why would people dance in photo frames? Again, made no sense to me. I hated that part. I thought it was cheesy and corny. Did you know that there in 2013, it was announced that Universal Pictures is in the process of remaking Weird Science? Do we like this or do we not like this?
I'm going to stay away from it. I think I'm actually okay with the original. I came into the podcast hating it, but now going back, I'm liking it. Leave the source material alone. There's no need to redo it.
All right. So apparently Joel Silver, who made the original, will be producing it. The screenwriter will be the same screenwriter who wrote Project X and the remake of 21 Jump Street with Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. He's had some success before, but who would you cast in the remake with Kelly LeBrock's character?
You can't. There's too many problems. In 85, this was believable because there was the wonder of technology. Now, all they're going to do is they're going to mix a live sex doll with a Sibian, or some kind of animatronics. Any robotics class in high school could create the sex doll. So there's no wonder. There's no need to do it. I don't even want to say who I think would be in it. Don't make it. Leave it alone.
My perfect casting would be Jennifer Lawrence. I think Jennifer Lawrence would do fantastic in that role.
I she would as well, I think.
All right. So that concludes our review of Weird Science. I hated it. Dick loved it. If you want to rent it, it's not streaming anywhere. It's not on Netflix. It's not on Amazon Prime. You can still pick this up on iTunes or check your local Walmart in the $4 bin. So, Dick, if people want to contact us, how can they find us?
Email us at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We're on all the social media channels. You can also, please, if you want to help us out, go to iTunes, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, 4-star, whatever you feel. Email us with some of your feedback, and each week, please vote on the website starting Monday morning. We'll have the 4 movies we're considering to do next week. This week, we're going to do something for the ladies. So we're either going to do something like Ghost or Pretty Woman. So we'll have it up there. Please vote. And that's the way you can help us out. And please keep listening and email us. Let us know what you think.
Thanks so much for listening. Please leave a seat between you and your buddy, or they'll think that you guys are together.
Can we keep this between us? I'd hate to lose my teaching job.